Wonderful. Isn't he lovely? He's like a sort of toy, isn't he? Oh, he really posing well.
Welcome to another episode of Toby's Stupid Vlog.
We're back in Princess of Wales Conservatory looking at orchids. It's the last weekend. These sort of kiwi things. So here we are at Ealing Broadway Station, just about to get on this here train to go to Goring, which is where we will resume our Thames Path walk for today. Going, I don't know how far down, because that keeps changing. I'm sure it's going to be grand. Because they've closed the stairs at this end of the station on platform 1, it's very amusing watching people run down these stairs on platform 2, 3 and then run all the way to the end of the platform, which is like about 300 metres to cross at the other end, and invariably miss this train, which is why it's so busy. Yeah, it's really busy. It's really, really windy today. There's gusts of like 40 plus miles an hour, which is like, if you know the Beaufort scale, this is force 8, which is classed as a gale. So that's going to make this a little bit interesting. Just checking out boat houses around Goring. So it's very windy, as I mentioned, but it's actually very nice. And we're just setting off, having moved vehicles around car parks and whatnot. But just remember, no mooring, no fishing. Weird buildings at the Thames Path, volume 912. It's private land and it's guarded by sphinxes. So that's exciting. That's a bit more classical. It's still windy, it's rained a couple of times, it's very confusing weather. But we head on to, where are we having lunch? Wallington? No, Wallingford. Yeah, Wallington's in South London. Yes, that's right, that's where Vino lives, so not there. Wallingford, in a pub. Welcome to Cholsey Marsh. And it is very marshy, to be honest. I'm not sure this is deliberate, but it's muddy as all hell. Have almost fallen in the river, so that was good, but, you know, missed it as good as a mile. It's very nice around here, even with the winds and the rains. I don't know how far we are from Wallingford. A couple of miles probably. 1.6 miles according to the Oracle, so that's good. And what is the time currently? Okay, we have 50 minutes. Perfect. We're now approaching Wallingford, still outside this main road. Kilometre and a half to go to the pub. It's very nice. Still, it was held like it said it would. The wind has also held like they said it would. I find that you see the Thames more sporadically the further up you walk. Because obviously it's not a massive river, as you'll see here at this point, so there's not always a path right next to it. Rather depends on whether somebody's got a nice riverfront property or a boathouse like that. But when you come across it still looks excellent. It's not their fault, Steve. It's not. They can't control that.
I don't know. Inbreeding would stop that. Well.
Yes, this is the back kind of the pub that we were just in. It's called the Boathouse in Wallingford, and that's the back of the kitchens. So there we go. Yes, we've had lunch. Steve's critiques the beauty of everybody in the venue.
Tom agrees.
And they've come up short.
Tom just said that's very insightful, and I've summed it up perfectly.
And now we go to, yeah, it was a bit like, it's a Green King pub, so it's like one Brexit away from a Wetherspoons.
Email address.
No. And now we are heading back to the Thames, which is just down here, down the private drive.
Can I just say,
Yeah.
chocolate oranges are available from Rollinson's.
Thanks, Steve. Are you being paid to say that?
No.
Are you sure?
Do you want a freebie though?
Oh.
I've got 100 of them.
I'll take a pair off your hands. We've been passing a lot of Second World War pillboxes from one of the rings around London. That's quite a big one compared with some of the other ones we've seen. We're about to cross the river onto the other side. We've just been watching some river chavs properly dicking around. That's a too fine a point on it. We've now got to go past Benson. Benson has got an RAF base, which means I can't take a drone off, which is unfortunate because the wind is starting to drop. But you know, drone safe, kids. Also, don't upset the military. That's very, very stupid. Tom is posing for photos. I don't know quite why. You can just take a little ride off this. Thanks, Nelly. It's a slightly weird route. You have to go slightly back on yourself to cross here and then head off up the north side of the Thames. Come to Shillingford. That's how much it costs to cross the river. It's very nice here. Very rural. It doesn't feel like you're anywhere near anywhere. Houses are massive and very pretty. And we probably have another 5 miles to go till we get to Tom's car, which is in Culham. I was going to say the greyness won't come out on camera, but it does. It's very grey. Look at that, all that grey. It's very gloomy. The weather has turned from being confusing to being just straight bad. So this is the final leg, as it were, round the river curves round, and then we cross the road, and then we sort of limp sadly into Culham. Is it going to hail? I think it might. Hi, the last thing you saw was us walking through the grey about, I don't know, nearly 24 hours ago. And I rather glibly commented, oh, you know, the weather's turned a bit bad, or something to that effect. It got a bit worse from there. And the reason that I didn't film anything else was because I couldn't get my phone out of my pocket. Now this is, as I mentioned, this is an iPhone XS, 10S, whatever you want to call it, which is a new phone. It has IP68 waterproofing on it. So that wouldn't have been the problem. The problem would have been twofold. One, I wouldn't have been able to look at the lens because my head was down the whole time. And two, you wouldn't have been able to hear anything. And my hands would have been unbelievably cold. So what broadly happened about 10 minutes after that, less, maybe 5 minutes after I filmed that clip, is it got darker and darker and darker, and the wind picked up tremendously to about 50 miles an hour or so. And then it started raining. And of course, rain at 50 miles an hour just goes horizontally. And we were walking into that. We were walking around a curve. So we were slowly turning into the wind. And it got worse and worse and worse and colder and colder and colder until it hit about zero. And yeah, I've never seen anything like it in this country. It's remarkable. And we had to walk through that weather for about 40 minutes, which seems like a lifetime when it's that cold and windy, like howling 50 mile an hour winds, or 80 kilometers an hour. And we weren't near any trees, thankfully, because it would have been just tearing branches down. And when we eventually got to the road where we crossed the river, that's when the first time the wind actually dropped and it stopped raining. But it only stopped raining because it started snowing. You couldn't make this up. It's ridiculous. And then for the last part of the walk, the last mile, the last 20 minutes, it was snowing and freezing, obviously. And when we got to the car, we were just sort of dead and sat there for a while. And then we had to go back to the start point where Steve's car was, and where I had to get the train. I had to wait about 20 minutes on a freezing platform, soaked to the skin. I was wearing long johns and a double thickness jacket and a jumper and a t-shirt. And I was soaked all the way through both jackets and both tops, through my jeans, through my long johns, all the way through my boots and my socks. I was cold and wet and miserable, and then took 2.5 hours to get home. And when I got home, I was just like, bleh, 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 bleh. Had some dinner, had a hot shower, which never really warmed me up, bizarrely. Went to bed, woke up this morning, had another hot shower, and I finally feel slightly human. And the weather is now, of course, completely spectacular out there, as you probably can tell. Yeah, look at that. And I've got work to do, which I need to get on with, and I am really, really exhausted, and my feet have just barely recovered. I think it's about 19 miles, but I'm going to look at it on a map now. So looking at it, the last count, although the GPSs will say slightly differently, I've actually measured it on a map. It's about 17 miles, which is a lot. It's not crazy amounts. It's just that the last 4 miles, from what I can work out, when the weather turned, were horrible. So about the last quarter, which explains why that felt so long at the end. Anyway, not much walking going to happen today. Welcome to the Publican Awards 2019 at the Bath's Evolution. This is where I am tonight. This is what I'm filming. It's a large venue with people having dinner and awards. It's pretty standard. Good evening. It is Wednesday and I've been in meetings in the morning and at WebVid this afternoon. The tide, as you can see, is very high. So it's slightly flooded around Mortlake. I'm really just testing the low light capabilities of my phone. I'm just on my way home now. And I've still got loads and loads of board papers to read before the meeting tomorrow. Which is slightly daunting. Like literally hundreds of pages. So that's not great. And I've got to finish the edit of the video which I was filming last night, the Publican Awards. So still plenty more to do before the end of the week. And then of course I piss off to Washington on Saturday, so these deadlines can't really slip. I'm sure I'll get done. It just right now just feels a little bit like it might not. It always ends up happening, but immediately before it ends up happening, it feels like it's never going to happen. Good morning. This weather feels familiar. Oh, like it really doesn't do it justice on camera, but it is terrible. Spring in the UK, yay. And now it looks like this. I mean, what the actual hell is going on? Right, I've read loads of board papers, I've still got loads to read, and I need to have lunch first before I decide what my next move is. So, quick Brexit update. I'd very much look forward to the day when I don't talk about Brexit. Probably even more than you do. However, things that are considered significant have happened, so I should at least make reference to them. UK Parliament has now rejected the deal that's been offered to them by the EU for a second time. That happened earlier in the week, or rather that happened at the end of last week, and now they've also rejected the idea of leaving without a deal, although that's not legally binding, so they would still leave without a deal unless they enact a piece of law that revokes Article 50. Today they are debating on the idea of extending Article 50, which I think basically almost everyone agrees has to happen regardless of what you want out of this process, which means we're definitely not leaving on the 29th of March. I mean, when I say definitely, I mean there's always a chance, but in my opinion, definitely. So, yeah, the frustrating thing about this whole nearly 3-year nonsense is that not a single thing has happened that has been even vaguely surprising. Like, all of these steps have been foreseen, and yet people still seem amazed. Like, this was all foretold before the referendum about how a negotiation with the EU would look, the kind of things you could get and the kind of things you couldn't, the timescales involved with those, and the idea that any other sort of Brexit doesn't exist and can't happen. So I don't know why we're still wandering aimlessly down this path, which has been utterly clear for the last 3 years. There is only 2 things you can now have. You can leave without a deal, and that is a catastrophic option. There is no debate about that. The people who are telling you that it is not are frankly lying or do not understand the circumstances. The other option is we do not leave at all. That is far more likely. I think by the end of the week we'll see that we're not leaving anytime soon. And I think anytime soon will soon turn into ever. And then this whole clusterfuck will finally be over. And I, for one, will be very glad. And I'll be looking forward to the prosecution of people who broke the law in the first place in the referendum. So there we go. Update complete. It is I from a far distant future. So distant because I genuinely thought I'd done the word of the week for this week and I didn't. In fact, I've done one for the next 2 weeks, but not this week. And that's a bit weird. So the word of the week this week is going to be the wind, because that's what I experienced on that wonderful walk. The wind is the word of the week. So first of all, in German, the wind is der Wind. Der Wind is the wind in German. That's very straightforward, that one. And in Italian, the wind is il vento. Il vento that's Italian for the wind. So there we go. That's wind in German and Italian. And that was this week's word of the week. Thank you very much for watching this slightly strange vlog. Next week, you'll get to see me in Washington, DC, of all places, which was quite an interesting trip, work bit notwithstanding. And so there's quite a lot of stuff in and around Washington in spring. So I hope you will stay to watch that and that you enjoy. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next week.